Okay, so we're going to be drawing and shading a cone shape. We're going to start with the base of the cone. You're going to draw a 4-inch line, 4 inches. Around that 4-inch line, you're going to draw the shape that we call an ellipse. It's a flattened circle or oval. So you can go around a few times to get the shape right, and then go over again a little bit darker once you've sort of gone around and made that motion a few times with your pencil, and then you can just erase the rest of the lines. So this is called an ellipse. It's like a flattened circle or oval. The reason we're drawing this for the base is because in reality the base of the cone would be a circle. If we were looking at it from the top, it would look like a circle, but since we're viewing it from the side, from the angle we're looking at it, it will be it won't look like a circle. It'll be slightly distorted and flattened. So instead of drawing the base as a circle, from our perspective, we're drawing it as an ellipse. So then I'm going to, from the middle of that line on my base, I'm going to measure 4 inches up from the middle of that line, and I'm going to make a dot 4 inches up. Then using that dot, I'm going to draw lines from that dot that go down to the base of my cone to create the two sides. And then the top of the ellipse and that first line we drew, I don't need anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and erase those. So now we're going to draw the shape of the shadow coming out of the cone. We don't really have to be super technical with this or have any specific measurements. You're just going to have two lines coming together to a point that are going out to the right side, because our light source is going to be coming from the top left, so our shadow will be going off to the right. So there's our light source coming from the top left. We want to remember that's where our light is coming from. First thing we're going to do, and I'm sorry it's blurry here for a second, it'll focus in a second, is on the right half of the cone. If you imagine a line going down the middle of the cone, you're going to shade the right half with a light gray. So imagine a line going down the middle and you're filling in the right side. And when you're shading for this shape, you're going to want to shade side to side, not up and down. So now, within that shadow that we just shaded, in the middle of that area, we're going to shade a section that's even darker. So we're still leaving a space on the very right edge. So make sure you don't shade the very, very right edge super dark, because that's going to be our reflected light. And the shadow, just like the shape of the cone, it's going to be skinnier at the top and then it's going to get wider as you go down. So now I'm thinking about where my light is coming from, and the light is coming from the left. So the left side is going to be where my highlight is, but it's going to gradually get darker as it curves around the front of that. So I want to add some shading. I want to leave the left side white, but then add some really, really light shading right next to that white area. So now what I'm doing is I'm adding more layers of shading, because I want, like I said, think about how the surface is curved. So there's the highlight on the left side where the light is hitting it. There's the reflected light that's coming around from the back side. This darkest area is called the core shadow. So since the surface is curved and it curves around, as it curves away from the light, it's going to gradually get darker. So we want it to look like a gradient, where as we go further to the right, it gradually goes from light to medium to dark gray. But on that right side, we still want to leave a little bit of space that's a little bit lighter, because we have that reflected light. It's coming around from the back, and we're seeing the light curving around from the back side. So that's just talking about the curved surface. And my cat decided to join me on this video. So I'm just going and I'm adding more layers of shading, because I want to have all these different shades of gray blend together. So I want it to look like as it's curving away from the light, it's gradually getting darker. It starts white on the very left side, then it goes to a really, really, really light gray. Then as we go further to the right, it gets a little darker until we get to the darkest part of the shadow, which is that core shadow. And then as it continues to curve around, sorry about it being blurry here for a second, it'll fix itself. But as it continues to curve around, we go from that darkest part of the shadow to where the reflected light is, so it starts to get light again. So it starts with your highlight on the left, which is white. As we curve around, it gradually goes from white to light gray to medium gray to dark gray, and then back to sort of a medium gray for the reflected light. So now I'm shading in the cast shadow, which is the shadow that's being cast by the object. So the darkest part of the cast shadow is going to be the part that's right up against the object, because the object is going to be blocking the light, and that's where the most light is going to be blocked, where it's right underneath the edge of the object. So it's going to be really dark underneath that edge. And then as I get further away from the object, some of that reflected light is going to be spilling in from the sides, and it's going to be making it a little bit lighter as it gets further away. So the most important thing about shading this cone is because the surface is curved, again, that's the cast shadow, because the surface is curved, you want it to be a gradual transition as you go from left to right. It go from white to light gray to medium gray to dark gray, which is your darkest shadow, and then back to lighter gray for the reflected light.